So the dominant narrative in the mainstream media when it comes to the Syrian crisis is that Bashar al-Assad is the main problem, and that we need to prioritize overthrowing him, and if that means we need to arm moderate rebels to try to defeat Bashar al-Assad, then that's what we need to do. However, the problem is that what we're being told by the mainstream media, it doesn't match up with reality, and Tulsi Gabbard actually went to Syria, and she talked with Syrians, and she gave the mainstream media a reality check that they really needed to hear.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, a friend of yours, also a military veteran, a Republican, he said on Twitter when he heard about your visit, quote, fact-finding mission, fact, 50,000 plus dead children in Syria. Tulsi Gabbard, I hope you didn't meet with their butcher, Assad. Now, Assad has used chemical weapons on his own people. You said it's going to be up to the Syrian people, but there really aren't free and fair elections in Syria.
I'll tell you what I heard from the Syrian people that I met with, Jake, walking down the streets in Aleppo, in Damascus, hearing from them. They expressed happiness and joy at seeing an American walking through their streets, but they expressed a question. They said, why is it that the United States, its allies and other countries are providing support, are providing arms to terrorist groups like al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, Ahrar al-Sham, ISIS, who are on the ground there raping, kidnapping, torturing, and killing the Syrian people, children, men, women, people of all ages. They asked me, why is the United States and its allies supporting these terrorist groups who are destroying Syria when it was al-Qaeda who attacked the United States on 9/11, not Syria? I didn't have an answer for them.
Obviously, the United States government denies providing any sort of help to the terrorist groups that you're talking about. They say they provide help for the rebel groups. Tell us more about...
The reality is, Jake, the reality is, and I'm glad you brought up that point, because this is an often talked about thing by people like Adam Kinzinger and others saying, well, we've got to support the moderate rebels. Every place that I went, every person that I spoke to, I asked this question to them. And without hesitation, they said, there are no moderate rebels. Who are these moderate rebels that people keep speaking of? Regardless of the name of these groups, the strongest fighting force on the ground in Syria is al-Nusra or al-Qaeda and ISIS. That is a fact. There's a number of different other groups. All of them essentially are fighting alongside, with, or under the command of the strongest group on the ground that's trying to overthrow Assad. The Syrian people recognize, and they know, that if President Assad is overthrown, then al-Qaeda or a group like al-Qaeda that has been killing Christians, killing people simply because of their religion or because they won't support their terror activities, they will take charge of all of Syria. This is the reality that the people of Syria are facing on the ground, and why they are pleading with us here in the United States to stop supporting these terrorist groups. Let the Syrian people themselves determine their future, not the United States, not some foreign country.
So Jake Tapper there implied that it's unethical for her to speak with Bashar al-Assad, seeing that he used chemical weapons against his own civilians. And look, I don't think you're going to find many people that will defend Bashar al-Assad. We all know he's an authoritarian dictator, but she kind of gave him a reality check there when she said, look, if you want to talk about ethics, let's talk about how the United States is arming so-called moderate rebels. The arms that we're giving to the moderate rebels, they're going to al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, and ISIS. So you're giving guns to groups that are terrorizing normal Syrian civilians. That is unethical. Now, Jake Tapper said, well, obviously, the United States government, they deny providing any sort of help to terrorist groups that you're talking about, and they say that they only provide help to moderate rebel groups. But Tulsi Gabbard rightfully dropped a truth bomb on him. She said, there are no moderate rebel groups. That's what Syrians are telling her. Syrians are there. Tulsi Gabbard went to Syria, so she actually knows what's going on, and I'm pretty sure that Syrians know what's going on in Syria, more than the mainstream media, and more than what the government wants us to believe. You're arming terrorists. The American government and our allies, they're arming terrorists who are raping Syrian civilians, who are killing Syrian civilians, and it's not okay. So say what you will about Bashar al-Assad, but if you overthrow him, then you allow for the takeover of Syria by ISIS and al-Qaeda. And why is it that the American government should be able to decide the fate of Syrian civilians? Don't they get a say in whether or not they want to be ruled by Assad or ISIS? I mean, regardless, it's lose-lose for Syrian civilians. But don't you think that we should stay out of this? I mean, people will say, look, well, we've got to provide humanitarian support. You don't understand. The American government, in theory, I like the idea of sending humanitarian aid to foreign countries, but the American government, they go to foreign countries and they make matters worse. They make matters worse, they don't help. So if you dare to go against the dominant narrative that Bashar al-Assad should not be overthrown and that it's not the U.S.'s business to topple foreign governments, well then you're demonized. You are a sympathizer to a human rights abuser, and Tulsi Gabbard was demonized and vilified. So look, regardless of what you think about Bashar al-Assad, if you get rid of him, then you get ISIS. ISIS should not be in control of Syria. And the U.S. military is making ISIS more powerful. So if you make it the only goal to defeat Assad and you use whatever means are necessary to defeat Bashar al-Assad, then you're not realizing that you may be doing more harm to Syrian civilians, and their interests are what we should put above everything else, not overthrowing Assad for political reasons. So look, I'm glad that Tulsi Gabbard went on this fact-finding mission, and I'm appreciative of the fact that she's educating the media. The media should be doing this, but thankfully we have someone like Tulsi Gabbard who's actually educating the American public on this issue.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.